Hi everyone, and welcome to today's AdWords Hangout. My name is Kathleen, and I'm on the AdWords support team based in the Dublin office. I am joined today by two gentlemen, Todd, the global search lead, and Luke, a product manager, and they are both based in our Mountain View offices. Hi guys, thanks for joining us.
Hey. Hey.
So today we are going to be talking about review extensions, and these two are the specialists on that topic, and they're going to be talking us through all the tips and tricks for using it and why any advertiser should enable this feature for their advertising campaigns. So as this is an office hour segment, we invite any and all of your questions. You are going to see the Q&A app featured to the right of this video if you are watching live from the Google Plus page. So please feel free to ask any relevant questions as we go along, and we'll make sure to answer them at the end. If you are watching this as a recorded event after the live event on our YouTube page, you're going to see we put timestamps in the description so you can hop around and watch the sections that are most relevant to you. While you're here, why not subscribe to the YouTube channel? We post all of our AdWords quick tips, hangouts, and office hours here so you can learn all about the AdWords product. Okay, guys, Todd and Luke, I'm going to hand it over to you, and let's hear all about those review extensions.
Cool. Well, thanks very much, Kathleen. We're excited to be here and to talk to all of you about review extensions, which is a relatively new product, a relatively new extension you can add to your AdWords campaigns. But it's one that we're really excited about because we think both users and advertisers see a lot of value in it. So first, what are review extensions? Well, we'll show you a few examples to start off. Let's suppose that I'm a plumber in San Francisco, right? And as a plumber, I want people to consider me when they need plumbing work done on their house or their business or whatever. So one way that, that I can encourage more people to consider me is to cite third-party credible sources that say that I'm a good plumber, right? Because everyone says they're a good plumber, but if it's some credible third-party source saying it, it carries a little more weight, right? Because of course I'm going to say that I'm good, but if somebody else says I'm good, then the chances are I'm pretty good. So these are two examples on the screen. One is a paraphrased quote. So let's say that this is a fictional newspaper called the Bay Area Daily Herald, but let's say that they do a ranking of plumbers in the Bay Area or in San Francisco, and I was picked as one of the top 20. That's a great kind of review that I can cite on my AdWords in a review extension. Similarly, I can directly exactly quote from that website. So for example, let's say that that same newspaper article had this long thing where they said customers had nothing but praise for Luke's Plumbing and its services, that kind of thing. I can take a small quote from that and exactly quote it. So again, because I'm citing a third-party credible source, chances are users who are searching on Google for plumbers are more likely to consider my business and to click on my ad, and that hopefully will lead to new business for me. So that's basically what review extensions are and its benefit to users. I'll pass it off to Todd, who will talk a little bit more about the benefit to advertisers.
Yes, I can take down the example in a minute. Yeah, so Luke talked for a little bit about sort of the benefits to both the users and the advertisers. I think the idea of expanding on the benefits to the user specifically, I think, is important because I think not only does it help the user decide which ad to click on, but it really does give them additional information, you could say. I think users are more and more coming to Google for not just links and ads, but also for information. And I think as a marketer, the ability to align these kind of reviews with either other messaging or just parts of your business that you'd like to highlight or that are strong attributes for yourself are important. I think the two examples that Luke gave you are really good there to either highlight customer service specifically, or reliability, or consistency over the years. So the benefits to you as an advertiser, obviously the increase in CTR is important. I know as performance marketers this is one of your most common goals, and so not just from the increased size of the ad on the page. I mean, I think that's an easy way to think about it, but it's really just the idea that, again, sharing this kind of information with users makes them much more likely to consider your ad up front when they're seeing a number of ads for a given query. We've got a number of success stories from folks that have used review extensions since Q4 when we launched this. We'll share a couple of them with you today. One of them being from Starcom, one of the large agencies that you're most likely aware of. They had a quote that they wanted us to share with you guys. They said, Starcom has enabled review extensions across some of our largest accounts with an average uplift of 9% in CTR we see review extensions as an excellent addition to the ad unit, as it showcases positive endorsements to help influence consideration. So very much aligned with what Luke had talked about for a moment there about consideration. It's really that moment right there when the user is looking at ads, they have just a split second to kind of make a decision, and when you can provide more information up front about your business to help them trust a brand that they may not be used to, it really makes a difference. I think we're seeing that prove itself out over the last few quarters. One of the other things that we're seeing in terms of usefulness and sort of nice validation for us is just the general growth and popularity of the format. So obviously we've got a bunch of folks today that are interested in hearing more, which is always great to see. But just from the standpoint of seeing advertisers adopt this format has been tremendous for the two of us. So in reality, review extensions is actually the fastest growing ad format we've ever launched. And that's really exciting, knowing how long we've been working on a lot of these kinds of things, and the number of new ad extensions and ad formats that you guys see coming constantly. It really is a testament to this extension specifically when we talk about the growth. So today alone, we have more than 15% of Google accounts in the US running review extensions, which is exciting. And again, that number was achieved really quickly, especially for a product that had a very short beta stage, had a very short sort of pilot stage. The value was there, and we sort of made a rush to kind of get this thing out, listen to your feedback, and make adjustments as we went. Another large advertiser who had a quote for us to share with you about their experience is Ask.com. They say, review extensions has been a great tool for us, both from the perspective of increasing performance and reinforcing brand equity. So again, similar to the stuff that I said about the advertiser benefits up front, really the two big pieces there about increasing CTR and just seeing performance gains across your search account, and then obviously aligning with brand messaging and building up brand equity with customers who may or may not be may or may not know your brand. Let's see where you can enter them and see reporting. So one of the biggest benefits of review extensions is just the ease of implementation. So we've heard feedback loud and clear that sometimes it can be difficult to perhaps find a review that would be good for your business. And we think that we have ways to kind of help you through that. And Luke's going to talk at length about the policy and some of the things that trip advertisers up as they're thinking about reviews and how they're looking for the best way to highlight their specific attributes. But once you already have that in hand, and once you're confident that you have a good review, award, or ranking, the ease of implementation for review extensions is really one of its selling points. So we heard feedback loud and clear when we first launched this that it was only available at the campaign level, and you guys wanted the ability to quickly and easily enable this across your entire account with sort of just a couple clicks. And recently we launched that. We haven't done a real big public announcement about that, so if you don't know about that, it is available. We do plan on doing some follow-up messaging just about a lot of the stuff we've been working on with review extensions, but that's one of the biggest improvements to date, and we think that's really important. The full suite of AdWords reporting is available as well directly in AdWords, so again, just a testament to how quickly this thing took off and how sort of popular it was that we made all of those features available right away. And then just as of last month in February, we made review extensions available through the API as well. Again, just a really fast sort of track record for something that just launched in Q4. So that's about it for now, I guess, from the benefit standpoint. I'll let Luke talk about the policy side, which I know is probably the part that most of you guys want to jump into.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of questions. Even when we piloted this internally, we had a lot of questions internally from our fellow Googlers. So we anticipate that folks have, confusion or question about policy. So we have a stringent policy to make sure that these reviews are really high quality and that they're going to be useful, right? Because again, it's going to be both best for users that are searching on Google if these review extensions are super useful to them, and it's going to be more useful for you as an advertiser if that particular review is accurate and will really cause people to consider your business better. So be sure to read the policy carefully. You can find the policy on our Help Center along with all of our other policies. There are a lot of different examples there to show you, the sort of the do's and don'ts. So just make sure you read through it carefully, and I'll highlight some of the most important things and some of the things that we see people making mistakes on frequently. So just so that you don't get tripped out by those same things. So the first major sort of idea behind our policy is we want the reviews to be accurate and current, right? So for example, you don't want to portray the third-party review in a way that's sort of misleading or that somehow doesn't accurately reflect the original article, right? So let's say, in that plumbing example, they actually said, something, sort of something bad about my plumbing business, but at the very end they said, but some people will like it, right? If you just quote, people will like it, right? That's sort of being inaccurate compared to the original quote, right? So obviously anything obviously inaccurate is going to be disapproved. But there's a few other little things that tend to trip people up. It has to, if it's an exact quote and you're not quoting the whole sentence, you have to use ellipses to show that you're abbreviating the sentence. So that's something that a lot of people leave out if they're doing exact quotes. You can also choose to just paraphrase it. But even paraphrases, again, you want it to be as close to the original as possible so it's accurate. Also, with the current awards, let's take again the plumbing example. Let's say there was some article from 10 years ago that said I was a great plumber. Well, maybe I was great 10 years ago, but that's not so accurate now, maybe, right? So if it's been more than a year since the review, that will also get disapproved. And also, if it's an award that comes out every year, like I won Plumber of the Year in 2013, right? Well, then I need to say Plumber of the Year 2013, right? It doesn't make sense for me to just say Plumber of the Year because then they don't know which year, right? So again, that's going to be more useful to users if we say what year it is. So those are the most common things we see in that sort of bucket of accuracy and currency. The second thing that's really important for review extensions in our policy is that it comes from a credible third-party source. So the third-party part is easy, right? Like I can't quote myself, right? Of course, I'm going to say I'm a good plumber.
And your mom.
And my mom might say I'm a good plumber, right? But it needs to be a third-party source, and it has to be a credible one. So like a publication, some kind of a reputable ranking authority, that kind of thing. It can't just be an individual customer. We know that you often get great accolades from individual customers, but the idea behind review extensions is more for a third-party credible source that users are likely to already trust, right, as opposed to an individual person. So some of the common things in this category, also aggregate review or aggregates of user reviews are also not allowed just because those can change. So if there's some website, including Google, where people rate restaurants and rate all kinds of businesses, well, you can't just say, oh, I have an average 4 stars out of 5 or something like that, because that average can change, right? If you get an award from one of those websites, that's different. But just giving the average or the ranking, that's not allowed. Also, it can't be on your own website. So let's say that I quote from a third-party review on my own website, right? Well, you have to link to the original website, the original review, right? It can't be secondhand reporting, basically, right? And then finally, we don't allow press releases just because they tend to be kind of marketing lingo and not very high quality for our users. So usually there's a more relevant landing page you can pick for the reviews. And then finally, we require that the reviews to be unique and substantive. So by unique, it shouldn't be the same as anything that's already on your ad. And you shouldn't repeat the name of the source or the name of your business in the review, right? Because the name of the source is already going to be there, and the name of your business should already be on your ad, probably multiple times. So it would be duplicative to repeat those things. And also we want it to be a substantive review. It shouldn't just be describing your business. It should tell people why they should pick your business. So those are sort of in a nutshell. Again, it's best to read the full policy page, but those are sort of the major high points and the things that we see advertisers making mistakes on the most frequently.
Awesome. That's really great. Bunch of information there, guys. A lot of things that I wasn't aware of as well. So I'm really glad that you covered all those areas, especially the policies. I think one thing to point out from like an advertiser point of view is the aggregate point that you mentioned, Luke. So if you are collecting reviews from multiple customers, then make sure you look into the seller ratings review, which is slightly different. So they kind of would deliver different things for you, but either way, get that positive message about
That's a great point, Kathleen. The aggregate reviews that are just on the web, those are best reflected in the seller ratings or star ratings, you might call them, but we call them seller ratings, but they're the stars that appear next to ads. We aggregate them from all over the internet, from certain review providers, and that's a more appropriate place to show those aggregate reviews. This is more for a specific credible organization or publication that says something great about your business, and you want to highlight that specific, more qualitative review.
Awesome. Okay, so I've got a couple questions that I kind of want to throw at you guys that I've had, talking to customers over the past couple weeks about this great new feature. So let's see what you think. So the first question I have is, are there any specific kinds of reviews or examples that you can give us that they've worked really well and that people have found really useful?
Yeah, I can take that one. I mean, it really depends on the specific business, on the industry that you're in. Our policies really sort of cover us across the board in terms of just making sure that the review is useful to the user. And I think, from an advertiser, or just sort of as a sort of owner of the marketing message of the business, I think I would just put yourself in the user's shoes and say, if somebody went looking for my services, or they're doing various sort of generic queries, in my industry, what sorts of things, might they be looking for, right? So, in the auto industry, perhaps, speaking about, reliability, or quoting some of the sort of bigger sources that, talk about, like we see in TV ads and print ads, as they talk about reliability or resale value. But in the plumbing example, for example, it may be specifically about timeliness. It may be a quote about customer service. Things that in that industry are really, really important to users. Other things may be low cost. I mean, whatever it may be. And so I think just really thinking about it from your business, for example, is probably the best way to start. Okay,
awesome. So I know a popular question is always about cost. Is there an additional cost for this feature, and how would I pay for? Do I pay for clicks on the review?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there are two different links on an ad that has a review extension. There's the headline, right, which is sends you to your website, to the advertiser's website. But then we also link to the source, right? So we link to the original source. So if the person that's searching on Google wants to see, hey, I want to read the whole article, I want to read the whole review, they can read that. Clicks on the source are completely free, right? Because again, this is not on your advertiser website. This is on a third-party website that's talking about how great you are, right? So that particular click is free. But clicks on the headline are paid just like any other ad click. And in terms of additional cost, there's more details in a launch we did in the fall about the effect of formats on cost. So there is some effect of formats on cost, but it's all within your existing ad bid.
Okay, great. So maybe another question. I can see one's been posted here. Mary has asked, how can I find a good review to use? Do you guys have any tips about where to go and look for some good reviews for your business?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sometimes it can depend on the advertiser. Again, larger companies tend to have people that handle these kinds of things, whether it's a PR department or a marketing department or a communications department. And oftentimes they're keeping track of these kinds of things. They're keeping track of press about the business. They're keeping track of, or they're often involved in sort of the development of some of these kinds of things. And so I think most companies are aware, I guess, of whether it's large publications that do an annual ranking that they're sort of always waiting for to see if they were sort of named that, or a lot of smaller business often have kind of like the plumber example where it's a local newspaper who puts out a very reputable sort of annual award, and so those are the kinds of things that we would look to. You really don't have to get too creative here. I think that's where some advertisers get tripped up, is them trying to like dig and find reviews that just may not be sort of applicable. I think most businesses have a decent pulse on what people are saying about them in the news and press, and like I said, I think the annual rankings is one that tends to be a really popular one for some of the smaller businesses.
Yeah, what we found to be useful sometimes when we're trying to help advertisers find these is just good old-fashioned Google searches, right?
Yep.
We look for the name of the business and ranking or rating or review, that sort of thing. Just keep in mind it should be a third-party credible source. It can't just be one individual person necessarily. But yeah, generally, as Todd was saying, even small businesses often have a good idea of, hey, what are people saying about me? And they sort of, if you're a good small business owner, you're keeping a file of everything people say good about you so that you can cite it later, especially if it's by a credible source like a newspaper or something like that. So it can be sometimes tricky to find these, but if you find the right person at your company, or if you have a really small company, if you go back and look at your clippings and so forth, you can probably find something that's relevant.
Okay, and then maybe just a follow-up, I'm curious, does Google or do we do any checks on, the permissions for using this? Do I need to reach out to the local newspaper and ask them if I can use the reviews?
That's a really good question. So in general, just like ad text, the advertiser is responsible for kind of making sure that they're sort of allowed to use any kind of wording, any kind of using the name of the newspaper or anything like that. We don't check on that kind of stuff. But again, like I said, a lot of the policies about review extensions actually follow under very general AdWords policies, and that's where we would find information like that, which is essentially you're responsible for sort of double checking what you can and can't say in your ads as an advertiser.
Okay.
Not you.
Awesome. Yeah. So you can see we have Mary has a follow-up question, which I think you guys touched on a bit earlier, but maybe you could just revisit. She wants to know if she should set up review extensions at the campaign or the account level. Like, how does this work if you have a really large account?
So that's a really good question too. In general, we advise people to try and find reviews that apply to your whole business and set it up at the account level, just because that's the easiest thing. You only find one review and you set it up once. It's very easy. That being said, for certain kinds of products or certain kinds of lines of business, especially if you have a big business with very diverse product or service lines, maybe it makes sense to find specific reviews that tie into specific products or specific lines of your business, and then assign those at the campaign level, right? So, if you're a car company, you might have different reviews for each model car, say, right? But in general, like if you're trying to decide one or the other, we generally steer people towards account level just because it's easier, and especially if you can find a really good quality review that applies to your whole business.
Yep, and I think that's a really good example. I mean, even just using the autos, for example, that could be an industry where they would initially think that they should get reviews for each and every vehicle that they have, and that can be a tedious process. It can be tougher from an implementation standpoint. When actually, I mean, let's just use, say, Ford, for example. When actually a review about Ford as a brand would be very strong as well. I mean, there are likely really positive articles and rankings that have been done about the automaker as a whole. That would be great to apply to the entire account. So again, just from an ease of implementation standpoint, it's not necessary to think of these as product reviews or product rankings, and that users often find a lot of value when you can speak to them about your brand and about, like we talked about earlier, some of the, whether it's customer service or just reliability or just some of the sort of consistency over the years of being a great brand. That's really strong, and it's immensely easier from an implementation standpoint.
Oh, and actually that brings up another great point, is that you can actually set it up for both. Yeah. Right? You can set up an account level extension that talks about your brand in general, and then you can also, if you find specific reviews, you can assign them at the campaign level, because any more specific extension, just like any other AdWords extension, specific campaign extensions will sort of overrule the account one, right? We'll always go with whatever the most specific thing is that you've given Google and AdWords. So that's a great way to leverage both sides, where you can put an account level thing that talks about your brand in general, and then if you find anything specific, which might be more relevant for a specific campaign, you can put that in too, and you can benefit from both. One broad one that'll show on your ads in general, and then for that specific campaign, a more specific review.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Luke. I think that hopefully that answers your question, Mary. And it looks like we're out of questions then for today. But what I'll just do is we might just wrap up there. I think we've covered lots of really interesting stuff. I definitely have learned a little bit more about the policies. I hope everyone watching has as well. If you are watching this as a recorded event and you have any questions, either get in touch with your local AdWords team via the phone, chat, email, over any social media, or go ahead and post on the YouTube page, and we will make sure to loop in these specialists to answer your questions for you. So thanks, Luke. Thanks, Todd, for joining us today. And hopefully we will see you next time for our next office hours installment. Thanks very much and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks.